We have some crazy new statistics revealed about players playing on the Vancouver Canucks and the Montreal Canadiens that we just have to dive into. Because these numbers, they kind of tell a different story compared to what we've been seeing so far. Obviously, y'all are familiar with the fact that I am a Vancouver Canucks and Montreal Canadiens fan. They're my top two favorite teams, and some might think that's weird. Yeah, I know, I've been getting comments about it literally since 2018. But in today's commentary, I wanted to talk about Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks, as well as Ivan Demidov on the Montreal Canadiens. There are games to be held later today, so obviously their numbers might change up after this video's public, but for what it's worth, these two guys have displayed some pretty interesting statistics that I thought were video-worthy, hence why we are making this video here today. Let's go out there and talk about Ivan Demidov, who, at 20 years old playing for the Montreal Canadiens, is all the way up there at 54 points in 70 games played. That's a really good number. And he is on pace for 64 points over 82. He currently has 15 goals and 39 assists. Just to put into perspective how good this overall metric is, let's go back to the season where the Montreal Canadiens made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, 2020-2021. Okay, wait, never mind, that was a bad year, because it was the shortened COVID season. Let's go to the season before that. So the top point scorer on the Canadiens was Tomas Tatar in 2019-20, with 61 points in 68 games. Meanwhile, Philippe Deneau had 47 points. Max Domi had 44. Gallagher had 43. This season, Ivan Demidov has 54 in 70 games played. This guy would have been one of the top point producers in Montreal 6 years ago, had he been on the team, and Demidov is a rookie. That's crazy. Now, I understand wholeheartedly that the NHL is a lot more friendly for points these days, especially compared to 5 years ago. A lot more goals are being scored, goaltender numbers are going down. That's all correlated here. But for Ivan Demidov, we did have some really interesting records being tied because of his 54th point of the season scored against the Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday. Take a look at this. Ivan Demidov has tied Kirk Muller and Bernie Geoffrion's rookie season point totals. And if you go over to the NHL record book, you can find points scored by rookie players in their rookie seasons. Ivan Demidov is there at 193rd with his 54 points. Now, it's a pretty big tie for guys in NHL lore who have scored 54 points as a rookie, but it's good enough for Demidov to be in the 193rd spot. Other players who scored 54 points in their first NHL seasons include Pat LaFontaine, John Tavares, and Jonathan Toews. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat there. John Tavares scored his 54 points in 82 games. Jonathan Toews did it in only 64 games. So there is a discrepancy. Toews was a crazy good player, and he had scored a lot of points at 18 years old, despite the fact that he played way fewer games. But for Ivan Demidov, just when it comes to the raw, hard point numbers, he is right there. Bernie Boom Boom, by the way, he is 183rd on this list. He also had 54 points in his rookie season in 67 games. So, while it's true, Demidov is not necessarily on pace to tying up the guy who invented the slap shot, essentially, there are still a number of really notable names that had the same level of production when Demidov was a rookie. That's a pretty good sign, I would say. A lot of people are going out there and thinking about Demidov as a guy that could potentially overtake the most important player on the team mantle from Nick Suzuki one day. Is it guaranteed? Probably not, but is it possible? Absolutely. With that said, let's go out there and talk about another absolute fact in the NHL, because for Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks, we now have a pretty notable set of numbers for this guy and his career. With Pettersson scoring 2 assists against the Anaheim Ducks 2 nights ago, he is up to 43 points in 62 games on the year. Not great, considering his $11.6 million cap hit and considering the fact that he had 102 points 2 seasons ago. But this guy is now out there with a total of 500 points in 533 NHL games. It took him 8 seasons to get to 500 total points. It's actually, flat, too. Pettersson has a really nice 200 goals and 300 assists. It's a beautiful stat line. And with that, we have some Vancouver Canucks-related Pettersson numbers to dive into as well. Take a look at this post made by Noah Strang. Here are the amount of games it took Elias Pettersson to reach each milestone. It took him 103 games to get his first 100 points, 127 games to go from 100 to 200, only 76 games to go from 200 to 300, and then 84 games to go from 300 to 400. Then from 400 to 500, it took him 143 games. Pettersson started out his career hot. He then had some injury troubles early on in the COVID bubble year, and that was a pretty difficult time. He also had the conflicts with Miller that occurred recently, but when Pettersson was absolutely on his game, he wasn't affected by his knee, he wasn't affected by interpersonal drama. The guy was a top elite player in the NHL, getting 200 points over the span of 160 games is absurd. And Pettersson did that pretty much for the bulk of 2 and a bit seasons, so great numbers there. Perfectly illustrates how difficult it's been for Pettersson lately. But he still, despite the fact that he did have this big slowdown, found himself at the top of the 2017 NHL Draft. Among all centers in 2017, nobody will reach 500 points faster than Pettersson, and it's unlikely a player will reach 200 goals at a faster pace. Take a look at it right here. So Pettersson has 500 points in 533 games. Cale Makar has 500 points, essentially, in 465 games. Makar will be the number 1 point producer out of this draft. It's just a matter of time. But when you look at the other center options, Nico Hischier has already played more games than Elias Pettersson. He's got fewer goals and he's got fewer points. Robert Thomas, similar situation there, fewer games than Petey, but there's no way he's going to reach the 500 point and 200 goal mark before Pettersson did. Same could be said about Mittelstadt, Velarde, Morgan Geekie. I mean, as good as Morgan Geekie is nowadays at scoring goals, he's got a lot of runway to go out there and cover. This poster, Logical Nutty, on the Canucks subreddit goes out there and says, Nick Suzuki would need 39 points in his next 7 games to match Pettersson's point production. For goals, Marty Necas would need 42 goals in his next 25 games. The often injured Josh Norris would need 99 goals in his next 238 games. Josh Norris has a career goal pace of 30 goals per 82 and a current season pace of 25. The pace he needs is 34 per 82 games played. For assists, Pettersson will likely be the 3rd fastest to 300 assists, with the fastest being Robert Thomas. Nick Suzuki needs 1 assist in his next 7 games in order to reach that mark. He's at 299, Nick Suzuki is. And then Marty Necas would need 44 assists over his next 25 games, which admittedly doesn't seem that crazy when you consider the fact that it's Colorado. But still, eh? Elias Pettersson is the fastest center in most of these categories out of the 2017 draft to be able to get these numbers. A lot of the heavy lifting was done from his middle-of-the-pack career. Nowadays, I guess we'll just have to wait and see whether or not Pettersson can go back to that 76 games over 100 points rate. Right now, he's doubling that, which is not a good sign, but it still illustrates that Pettersson has a body of work that is very enviable for most normal peasants living amongst the hockey fandom. So with that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Ivan Demidov tying names like Jonathan Toews, John Tavares, and Bernie Boom Boom Geoffrion in rookie scoring? And how do you feel about Elias Pettersson hitting that 500 milestone, getting to the peaks and valleys of the 2017 NHL Draft? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9 and bye.